Well, thanks everybody. Thanks for being here today. I'll give you some quick highlights of our reaction. Again, I always have to give the disclaimer on budget day that this is early reaction and we may need to analyze things a little bit more. I will also say, as I say every year, twice a year when the provincial and federal budgets come out, there really is a better way of doing this than having everyone have to sit and listen to the speech and frantically jot down numbers and try to do calculations. They could do, I don't know, what the city does. Release the budget in advance, then have a real debate about it. But they didn't. So, what I can tell you is this is very much a business as usual for the city of Calgary. As I've been saying, I wasn't really expecting much in this budget given the fiscal situation of the province. I had some high hopes. Clearly the high hopes were not met, but that is not actually that surprising. So I can tell you that there was one nice thing in there, which is we're pleased to see the government is moving forward on funding for the Deerfoot Trail and 212th Avenue South interchange. That actually will really help us ease congestion in deep southeast Calgary, as well as open up a little bit more of land for development there. We're also really happy to see that the province is committed to work with the city and the federal government on our #1 road priority currently, which is the completion of Airport Trail. That's a critical east-west linkage in the city between Stoney Trail and Deerfoot Trail, and we're very, very happy to see that happening, and I'm very optimistic that when we hear from the federal government in their budget next week, that we will see a commitment to that project as well. Also happy that the Calgary LRT was mentioned in the speech. Clearly the province is in the same place where they want to fund it, and they're figuring out the best way to do that. So that was a good thing. I was also noting that there is more than $1 billion set aside from the carbon levy, which seems to be specifically focused on transit funding. We have to assume that is for our Green Line and the Edmonton LRT, so that's a good thing as well. I was also very happy to see the increased funding in the budget for addiction and mental health. The opioid crisis continues to be our #1 public health crisis. We're still losing 3 people a week in the city of Calgary to death from overdose, and it's good to see that both the federal and the provincial governments have recognized how important this is. And we will work with them to both save people's lives and help people get better. A couple bad things. It would be good to have more clarity around cost sharing with the federal government, particularly as we're expecting the federal government budget next week, particularly on things like affordable housing. If the federal government does, as expected, allocate an enormous amount for affordable housing, the province and the city have to be ready with projects and with matching funds. So it's something that we're going to have to move very quickly on. I'm very disappointed, and this is one that requires more analysis, but it looks like the province has rejected our request to increase the Alberta Media Fund. That's about bringing filmmaking into the province. And instead of increasing the fund from $36.8 million to $50 million, they seem to have cut it to $29 million, which is really strangling a very important industry in a growth phase here in the province very early on, and that is a very bad thing. As I've said many, many times, filmmaking is not a nice, fun-to-have industry. It's an industry that needs to grow significantly in Alberta because it supports a lot of jobs, and a lot of good jobs. And it's very, very difficult for us to grow that industry if we can't be competitive with funding in the way that other jurisdictions and other provinces are. And one thing that I will leave for my friends in the media to follow up on, what happened to my reservoir? Interestingly, the Springbank off-stream reservoir does not appear in the budget. I actually think this is because they fully funded it in the previous budget, but I'm surprised that I didn't see it in the long-term capital plan. That's just a question we're going to have to ask what happened there. MSI funding remains the same. Green Trip has increased a little bit. Fuel tax has gone down about $100 million over 4 years for the whole province. That's going to have an impact, a pretty big impact on our operating budget. Police grant unchanged, which means, of course, the City of Calgary's per capita allocation goes down, and we've been consistently eroding our police grant over the years. Alberta Community Partnerships funding has been cut in half, so I don't know how the Growth Management Board for the Alberta region is going to be impacted. Timing on the ring road has been pushed out. We are disappointed that the $38 million commitment for new affordable housing has yet to be allocated. And I was sad myself to see that there was no recognition of the costs to the city, particularly for public transit, from the new carbon levy. This would have been a very easy and relatively small thing to do to show commitment to the operating budget of Calgary Transit, and we didn't see that today. So with that, questions?
Are you disappointed there's no money specifically for the Green Line?
I wasn't really expecting it. This is one where I'm willing to give the province more time to figure this out. I know they're waiting on the City of Calgary to continue and complete our design questions and our basic budget. So actually that one I'm going to let them off the hook on for now, because I am cognizant that the money they funded us late last year certainly was a very important indicator that they're committed to this project. So that one, I was kind of hoping that maybe I'd at least see an approval in principle, but I understand they're waiting for us to finish our work.
What is your interpretation of the finance minister's comments, though, that the province will remain the odd man out until the city can provide that scope to them, even though the federal government's willing to go in it?
It is kind of a stalling tactic, but at the same time, it is a lot of money. And so they want to see a detailed budget, and I really can't fault them for that.
What about the education property tax? They're saying that that's frozen and it'll be distributed differently, and that'll be 6% in Edmonton and 0 in Calgary. So what does that mean for citizens?
It's actually a little bit difficult, and we'll probably have some better analysis in the coming days on what that actually means. Because the formula that they had been using in the past, as we know, kicked out quite a large increase, especially on the business side last year. So presumably, I'll take it at face value that they did what we did, which is they froze the mill rate, they froze the tax rate for the next year. Actually, we didn't quite freeze the mill rate. You know, this is complicated. But essentially, we froze our property taxes for next year, and I will take them at face value that they've done the same thing. That doesn't mean each individual will see their own bill exactly the same as last year, because it'll have to do with whether you went up or down more than the average assessment. That said, if my interpretation is correct, that they did what we did, that's actually a very good thing.
Qu'est-ce qui me déçoit le plus? Vous avez parlé de l'industrie du cinéma qui n'a pas eu d'argent.
C'est difficile parce que pour nous, l'industrie du cinéma est très très importante, parce que la puissance de cette industrie est très importante pour la création des emplois. Et nous avons demandé une augmentation jusqu'aux 50 millions de dollars. Et nous avons reçu une diminution jusqu'à 29 millions. Et donc, c'est ça très difficile pour l'industrie cinématique de mettre plus fort ici en Alberta.
How did your meeting yesterday with Gary Bettman go?
You know exactly what I'm going to say. We had a cordial and candid discussion of different views.
He says that he's willing to be a facilitator between the city and the claims. Is that an offer you can receive from my
I'm not 100% sure that would be all that helpful. But he certainly did make that offer, and I told him if we need him, we'll call him.
Well, did he seem impressed by the new event center in Victoria Park? Do you like the idea, as opposed to Calgary Next?
We had a candid and cordial discussion of different remarks. We continue to talk. There will continue to be more discussion with the public here about that. I will point out that I made the mistake of reading the comments. And it is interesting that the calls to our office, the emails, the comments have been, I would say, 99.999997% saying, please, Mr. Bettman, stay out of it, and no, there should be no public money for this.
He says it's a project that's vitally important. Is it?
It's both vital and important, according to Mr. Bettman. You know, we have many things that are vitally important. We are in an economic downturn. A lot of people don't know where their next meal is coming from. I got a lot of priorities to work on. Certainly, we will be good partners on this. We will have an open and honest discussion about what might be possible, where there might be a win-win. I continue to say that, as always, public money must be spent for public benefit. And if we can figure out a way that there is public benefit in an interesting project in Victoria Park, we'll take that to the citizens and see what they think.
With this hold-the-line budget that we saw today, and we're talking about no added funding or no mention about how much this carbon tax is going to cost the city, will you be pushing for something on the city end to see how much this will be costing city officials and to run with the added levy?
Oh, well, we know that. We know that on diesel fuel alone, in Calgary Transit, we're looking at a couple $1 million. The estimate that I had before the levy came into place was about $6 million on motor fuel for the city, and then additional on natural gas that we use to heat our buildings. So it's a significant touch. You know, it really is something that is probably in the 1% range of property tax all in. That's an estimate. So it is a significant amount of money. And certainly the province's argument has always been that whatever they take in the levy, they are returning in investment. But the city has yet to see any investment from that. And as we know, there are some design problems with the levy where people who are getting rebates in some cases are not the people who are paying the levy. And so we've got to sort that out. And the right answer is not to say, well, most people who ride the bus got a rebate anyway, so I'm just going to increase bus fares and they can use their rebate money to pay the bus fares. That is not the right answer. And so we've got to figure this out. And particularly when I'm dealing with a transit system that has a significant revenue gap, a significant shortfall in revenue from last year to this, the carbon levy will result in cutting transit service, which seems to me the opposite of what a carbon levy is supposed to be doing.
On Airport Trail,
Yes.
the finance minister indicated that provincial support was for east of the tunnel. If that work goes ahead, does that not trigger the work west of the tunnel under the airport?
You are paying attention. Well done. We have to have a conversation with the new management at the airport about exactly this. Over the last few years, I think that we've come to an agreement that what's needed from the airport's perspective is not so much those interchanges to be built, but a time-based commitment to build those interchanges. But clearly, before those we couldn't build the whole road at once anyway. And the stuff that's really important for the movement of goods and services right now is the east of the tunnel stuff, because the tunnel already connects all the way to Deerfoot Trail. And so to connect it on the east side is how you create that road.
Do you have a ballpark on the work east of the tunnel and what the cost share is?
I don't, I'm sorry. But if you come back to me over the next couple of days, we'll have some more. Now that we've heard this, we'll create some more specific estimates. We're pretty close. All right?
Just wondered if it was one thing.
No, not clear. It'll really depend on the federal budget. I know that I've been told by many, many people in the federal government that this is a priority for them. So we'll see what they're willing to come to the table with. Okay, merci tout le monde. Thanks all.
Thank you.